teaching is a pain, and you can all be somewhere else. So I really appreciate it. I'm working my butt off. You got all of you here, and so I'm really surprised that you're actually all here. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. So I took this class that was called Basic1, and I'm going to the 13th. And up to that point, I owned small businesses and loved what I did, however, didn't like the stress. So I was like, hey, if I want to continue what I'm doing, I have to find a different way. Because at this stress level, I'm not going to make it very good. So at that point, a friend of Courtney introduced me to this class. I was lawyer at Sound in this class. It's my discipline. It's a class of 13. It's 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And there's more than 70 exercises. Almost one goes to double the other. So it's really fun. And one exercise really stood out to me. And in that exercise, it was a group exercise. Most of the exercises are individual, but this was a group exercise. We were, I think, 100 training principles. And I saw myself operating in a group as very passive-aggressive. And so you had to accomplish something. And I was either on the sidelines, waiting for them to take action, or I was in the middle telling them what to do, trying to control the situation, and then when they wouldn't move, go back to the sidelines, back off. And then when they wouldn't move, they would go back into the middle, telling them what to do, taking control. And it wasn't working. And so it was a really good insight, because that was how I was operating in my life. And not just in my business, but family and with friends also. And so I was like, okay, I have to find a different way of doing this. And the insight eventually was that I had to learn to lead as a participant instead of trying to lead as an owner or as a controller or as a boss or whatever. And so I'm still very much in the process of learning to do that. However, that exercise really stood out for me. And so I'm now participating in a goal-setting workshop, and this presentation today is part of that workshop. Part of those goals that I'm setting until January until March. And to help me with this presentation, Fred Ozan has come from Phoenix. He's a very successful businessman. Sure. And he is here on his own time, drove up this afternoon. And we'll explain what this class is about and also how it has affected his life and his business. How was that?
All right, thanks, Ed. John from Electronics, my name is Fred Ozan. Do you know what the #1 fear is? Public speaking. Yes. And so picture a funeral. The person giving the eulogy would rather be in the casket than giving you, right? So, death is #3. So, I think for me, sharks is #2. But anyway, so, how many here have ever made a mistake? Okay. What's the first thing you say after you make that mistake? Uh-oh. Yeah, uh-oh, oh shit, and then, I will never what? And what happened? And sometimes, again. Why is that? Habit. So, how many of you have ended up in the same relationship? Just a different name, right? Same job, different color of the carpet. Why is that? I mean, we get ourselves, we say it all the time, I'm going to do it differently, I'm going to be more excited, I'm going to be whatever, and yet, there we are. Psychology Today wrote an article, 85% of divorced women will end up with the exact same type of husband they just left. Why is that? She's patting her friend. Achoo! Thanks for listening, right? So It's a comfort. It's a that we call a program. What happens in a computer program when you push play? It runs until it stops. That's right, until it stops, and so you can't even. It's like you don't even know you're doing it. How many of you have ever driven home, hard day at work, whatever? You get, you drive into the driveway and you go, whew, how did I get here? What just happened in the last 30 minutes? Who was driving the car? Right? So the whole idea behind the basic seminar is that a lot of our thinking, a lot of the results that we have in our life are based really on a program that runs us. So in other words, we kind of run our lives on autopilot. How many of you kind of know that, right? Okay, so and if you don't, go back to the car, you get home, who's driving the car, right? So we run our lives on autopilot, and so if you take the belief that our thinking kind of drives our results, what we think is what we create, right? So if you take that and say, well, at 85 to 90% of our thinking is subconscious, what are we thinking? That's why we end up with the same relationship. That's why we end up with the same job. That's why we drive home and don't know how we got there, right? We're running on autopilot. And our results are a direct reflection of how we think, except that we don't know what we're thinking. In other words, so the whole idea behind the basic seminar is for you to get a look at that subconscious thinking. And then perhaps you would have a better way or a better experience on how you might change your life. And I'm not saying that anyone is broken here or anything like that or not successful, but all of us here want better results. Who wants worse results? Right? Unless it's weight gain, right? So, most of us want better results. We want more liberty in our lives, we want to travel more, we want to make more money, we want to have better relationships, we want to have more friends, we want to have whatever it is, right? We all have kind of different goals that we want in our lives. So how do we affect getting better results? If what we're thinking, right, and again, it's not good, bad, right, or wrong, gets us to the same spot every time. So as an example, I'll use me. I was going to use her, but no. Go ahead. So somewhere, and a lot of the things that we think, the things that run us, are things that we developed early on in life. Would you agree? And then, so what's weird is that, something that happened when we were young, at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all of a sudden when we're 40, it kind of looks weird, right? But that's what happens. So, as an example, somewhere in 7th grade, I started going out with girls, and they would say, hey, Fred, we need to have a talk. Uh-oh, what does it mean? Something's wrong. It's a breakup talk, right? Let's call it what it is. Right? So, now I didn't consciously make this choice, but because I didn't like the pain that I was feeling, I started to run my life in a certain manner. And that certain manner was that, for a long time, I thought a long-term relationship was both Friday and Saturday night. Right? So, all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, at 42 years old, I'm sitting there, not really having had a real meaningful relationship. I have given up 3 engagement rings, right? So, what's going on for me? And I had this realization that I did not want to be 50 years old with a ponytail driving a vet, chasing young girls around. You know that? Because that's where I was headed. Because I kept thinking, it's kind of like a bus stop, next. Kept ending up at the same one. So, when I went to the basic seminar, I kind of realized that I had been running my life that way. And if I didn't really change, then things weren't going to change for me. And so when I was, I've been married 10 years next month. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. Right? So things have changed a lot. So when I started dating my wife, I realized I had to do everything differently. I couldn't do what I was doing before and get some different result, because what do we call that? Insanity, right? So everything I did with my wife was different. I would buy cards and flowers and hold hands in public and have the talks on the couch and do all the things that I thought squares did, right? Now, everything I did was different. Everything I said, just because why? I was consciously aware of what I used to do versus unconsciously unaware of what I used to do. I'm now consciously aware of what I used to do, so I would do everything different. Now, did everything work out? No, some of the stuff blew up in my face, right? But, you know, based on our results, 10 years of marriage, a 2.5-year-old daughter, you know, our lives are pretty good. You know, and since that time, we've created, you know, a few $1 million in net worth. We've traveled the world. We have a beautiful daughter. We get to go and do the things that we want to do. If you like toys, I have toys. I had 2 planes. I just sold the last one. I have a motorcycle. I have a houseboat on Lake Powell. I have stuff. That's me. It's not my wife, right? We're all different. So depending on how you define success, our lives are a lot different, right? All because way back when, you know, 11, 12 years ago, I started thinking differently about how I should date women, and especially her. Now, is it a perfect relationship? No, she's not, but she's involved in this work. She sent me down here, so, you know. So my wife is the area director for the PSI seminars. So she gets paid to do this. I do not. I'm a businessman. I own a company called Legacy Franchise Group. We're an outsourced marketing and sales firm for franchisors. I have a small private equity fund that I manage, and then we have a bunch of real estate holdings and some other business interests. So that's kind of my side of the story. I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I'm really here as a condition of marriage. That's why I'm here. So why are you here? So let me ask a couple questions. So Bianca, we were talking outside. Why did you come down?
My high department invited me. His wife has invited me several times over the last couple of years. And just, it felt ready.
Felt right now? Okay, so you've been seeing it. You're like, okay, I'll finally go. Anybody else in that? I know some other people been invited a lot of times, never showed, couldn't do it. Chris took 2.5 years to get him to a basic seminar, you know. So sometimes we have to prod our friends. Took my mom. I asked my mom to go to the basic seminar. Now, some of your moms, some of your kids, but I mean, you know, I put my mom through everything, right? So I asked my mom to do anything. She's like, man, no, I don't think so, right? You know, somehow he's trying to get over on me. Now, this is many years later. I'm not 15 anymore, right? But so I had my brother go and all these other friends, and so finally she went with her husband. At that time, she was 70 and her husband was 80, and they got some really good value out of it. So it doesn't matter where you're on that. Joel, what did he tell you to get you here? Oh, okay. You're here as a condition of marriage too. Amanda, what did Courtney say to get you here?
She said, please come.
Please come?
And that's the level of respect I have for her.
Great. I love that. Very nice. Yeah, I like friends like that. Right? Yeah, it's good. How about you? I know you guys are. How about you? Is it mine?
Yeah, that's right. My team is that Michael was invited on Facebook, and I started reading about it. And maximize the value of getting out my master's degree in business right now.
Cool. Where are you getting your MBA at?
I'm getting it through Calvin right now.
Okay, good. Great. I have an MBA. I understand. It's hard work. Michael, what have you heard?
Actually, I'm roommates with Chris. So he had to come.
He had to come.
Yes,
Very good. All right, so a lot of people come for various reasons. At the end of the day, hopefully what I do tonight is give you enough information that you can make a decision to go to the class or not go to the class. Really, I'm just a guy here in a suit, in a condition of marriage. Your friends, your family, your workers, your coworkers, your associates, they invited you here. But hopefully I can explain what the basic seminar is all about. The challenge that people have with explaining the basic seminar is how many of you love chocolate? Where are my chocolate lovers? Okay, yeah, me, I just had a chocolate malt from there. How would you explain to someone who has never tried chocolate what chocolate tastes like? Yeah, you could come up with some adjectives, right? It's, you know, all that stuff, but until someone takes a sip of it, it's difficult to explain what it actually tastes like. So similarly, in the basic seminar, because it's an experiential seminar, meaning that it's about 70 exercises, 30% instruction, 70% you do the exercise, and then you have an experience of yourself in that exercise, it's difficult for people to explain because he goes through the exercise and his results, his experience will be different than Joel's. Does that make sense? So it's hard to, because I used to tell people on Friday night, I had a great experience Friday night, we call Friday night, and then after they went to the seminar or the class, I would say, what'd you think of Friday night? And they go, it was okay, but I really like Saturday. Why? Because they're not in the same position I am. So I had to learn the hard way, you know, not to over-exaggerate any one exercise, because we all get value different ways, because we're all in different pieces and parts of our lives, right? And so that's the whole idea behind the basic seminar. No matter where you're at, what you're doing, there's value there. So what I'll attempt to do tonight is kind of give you some of those little things, and we'll do a little exercise at the end so you can see what we're talking about, and hopefully you'll find some value to go. Make sense? So PSI Seminars, Personal Success Institute, they've been around for 45 years. They're the largest running privately held seminar company in the world. They've been around a long time. They do these seminars in like 17 cities, bless you, and in Canada and Hawaii. So if you're interested in how they do it in Canada, hey, you can go up there and see it. And their offices are in Clear Lake Oaks, California, which is up near Napa. They have a 1,800-acre working cattle ranch, so they do some of their advanced seminars on. So they've been around a long time. So the basic seminar is not an experiment that we made up last week and you're the guinea pigs. Okay, so they've been around a long time. If you want more data, I think there's some brochures in the back. I took the basic in October of '03. I was dating a woman at that time, who's not my wife, and she kept wanting me to go to the seminar. And so I, at the time, was working in Fortune 500 sales. I was a sales manager for Merck Pharmaceuticals. And, and I spent 10 years in the Army as a counterintelligence agent. I spent a lot of time in Fortune 500 sales. So imagine the number of seminars and classes I have been to. So when someone says, hey, I want you to go to the seminar, I'm like, no, I'm not going to any seminar. So she kept, bugging me and bugging me and bugging me. So I finally went, and I heard what I'm going to tell you is that if you go to all the sessions of the basic seminar and find no value, PSI seminars will refund your money. Minus $50 basically pays for the hotel. I was like, great. I'll go to the seminar, I'll get her off my back, and I'll get my money back. And that's how I went to the seminar in the back of the row in the do me position, right? And so obviously, here I am, all these years later, still involved, so I found some value in the course of the seminar. So if you're skeptical about classes, if you got resistance, I invite you to bring it to the class. I invite you to challenge, just like I challenged, to get my money back and see if you can produce some value for yourself. Make sense? Simple. All right. So the basic is an educational course, period. That's all. It's not a club to join. It's not an MLM. No one's going to tell you how to think. No one's going to teach you how to sell trust deeds. None of that. Educational course, period. When you hear the word education, Ryan, what do you think? So homework and study and not very exciting. But the truth of the matter, the Latin root of the word education is educa, which means to draw forth or develop from within. So the whole idea of PSI's philosophy is that you were born with everything you need to be successful. It's just that events occur in our lives. Because of those events, we make decisions about other people, places in the world, and then we run our lives based on those decisions. So the whole idea behind the basic seminar is you get to challenge yourself, no one else, to explore, question, and discover your own life. Be a detective in your own life so that you expand your personal and professional effectiveness now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not some day, but right now. What can I do leaving on Sunday night to have a better result? And whatever it is that you say you want. Not what I say you want, not what I want, what you say you want, right? Because we all have different goals. So the whole idea behind the basic seminar is that that's it, okay? You just, get to look at you. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's challenging, right? Because you get to look at some areas that maybe, like to have better results in, and, maybe. And what I encourage you to do is nothing is good, bad, right, or wrong. We assign value to certain things, but the truth is, it is what it is, period. I am here because of, and that's how I got here, and if I want something different, what do I have to do? If all my thinking got me here, and some of it's good, right? So that's the other part of it. We're successful in our lives. We're sitting here, we're successful. So I like some of the things I got going in my life. There's some areas I want better results in, and if that's true, what can I do differently? Not better, not good, not wrong, not right. What can I do differently to produce a different result that I really want? Because sometimes you got to experiment, like with my wife. I'd experiment on doing different things, and sometimes it worked, and sometimes it didn't. But the whole idea is that I was very aware of everything. How many of you have ever driven a stick shift car? Okay, how many of you have ever seen a stick shift car? How many don't know what a stick shift car is? Okay, so what does a person look like when they first attempt to drive that car? Right, they're popping the clutch, right? The poor guy in the passenger seat keeps saying, let it out slow, as if that means anything. And, you know, so you're popping around, you're probably training it in the parking lot. A couple months later, what does that person look like? He's very aware of every decision, right? There's an extra pedal on the floor, the brake is up here, and God forbid you end up on a hill, right? 9 months later, what does that guy look like? Beer between his legs, smoking a cigarette, he's whipping through those gears. And he never thinks about driving that car again, does he? Right? Same thing for us in really important things in our lives. We have made choices, right? And those choices now we're just running on autopilot. Wouldn't it be nice to know what those autopilots work? Because some of them work really well and some of them don't work so well in the results that we say we want. So that's the whole idea behind Basic Seminar. Next seminar is February 20th. It's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 10 to 8. And then there's a graduation guest event on Wednesday. This isn't a bladder test. You know, you get a break every hour and a half, 2 hours. You can put food and drink in the back of the room. You get to work with your small group, so you'll leave property and have a working lunch every day with your small group. And it's a series of exercises, so it moves really fast. You'll work one-on-one, you'll work in your small group, you'll work with the entire room, but it's always an exercise, you're always doing something, so no one is sitting there lecturing you for 36 hours, okay? It moves really quick, all of a sudden it's going to be Sunday night, and you're going to go, what happened to the time? All right, and so, like I said, it's fun, it's challenging, it's all that stuff, but at the end of the day, I think everybody can find value. Another simple example, so I think at some point in my life, I did a lot to get to success. I became an Army officer, I was a counterintelligence agent, I speak a couple languages, I have an MBA, I have a bachelor's degree, you know, I was going to go to law school, decided I didn't want to go to law school and got my MBA instead. So I think I'm smart, I think I'm all of that, and I have a lot of awards on my wall for different things I've done in the military, but I didn't feel successful. So I would be sitting in my home, on my couch, and someone would call and say, hey, let's go jet skiing. And all I could think of was, it's hot out, I gotta clean the jet skis, I gotta drive to Lake Mead, I don't wanna go jet skiing. And then someone would say, hey, let's go snow skiing, you know? And I would say, oh, you know, I gotta call, I gotta reserve a condo, it's a 3.5-hour drive to Bryan Head, I gotta spend the weekend with you. No, I don't wanna go snow skiing, okay? So then I would wonder why I was bored, alone, at my house, not feeling very excited about my life. So there was an exercise on Friday night that we did, and this is why I was talking about earlier, why I really liked it, because it gave me back my boyhood adventurous spirit. That everything was a big adventure. Let me get out there and explore. Let me do, let me do, let me do. So when I met my wife, I left corporate America and I started to become an entrepreneur. I moved here. And I raised, now, nothing has changed, all right? I have no new degrees, no new nothing. Just went to this course, figured it out, and I raised $7.5 million, and I bought a small probiotics manufacturing plant in Cottonwood, Arizona. So we bought that company. One of the women that I met here, we hired as the president of the company, and it was doing about $7 million in revenue when we bought it. 3 years later, we had it up to $27.5 million in revenue, and we sold it to a publicly traded company in Canada for $24.5 million. I owned 24% of that company. So nothing changed, right? The only thing that changed was my thinking. To give you an example of how that worked, when I was working for Merck Pharmaceuticals, I'll remind me about the Merck thing, but I'm going to show you why that happened. Because, see, PSI's philosophy is that the human being is of a fourfold nature. Can everybody kind of see this? By the way, you don't have to be a good speller or a good artist to do these presentations, so I'll demonstrate that all night long. All right, so 4 sides to the human being: physical, emotional, or what they term perfect self-expression, mental, wealth, and liberty, and then spiritual. So, in essence, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, physical, push-ups, sit-ups, 2-mile run will gauge your performance over the How many of you have ever had stress in your life? How many have stress in your life? How many aren't going to raise their hand no matter what? Okay, so, what causes stress? Ourselves? What else? We worry about work, spouse, friends, relatives, right? Different things are stressors for different people, because can two people be in the exact same set of circumstances and have two different results?
Yeah.
I mean, if you were driving on the 10 over here, right, and it was all crowded, and there's the one guy who's got the music on, live and skewed, right? And usually the guy behind him's like, right, and so he isn't going anywhere, but he's got some stress happening. I'm usually the guy in the back, right? So if you drove over here tonight with somebody else, tried to find parking, you might have a little stress, So if you had some tools and techniques to better handle stress, would it be of value? Because we talked about it, but what causes stress? It's kind of like a lot of times we talk about other people cause stress, we cause stress in ourselves. So a lot of it is our communication, our behavior. Does that make sense? And how other people's behavior affects us, right? And of course, we most of the time we say you don't have to let other people's behavior affect you, but the truth is it does, right? So the whole idea behind this particular exercise is for you to look at your behavior and the behavior of the other people, and maybe you can find out a better way to communicate, be in with other people, right? So you get better results. So as an example on that exercise, what I realized, I was working for Merck Pharmaceuticals, I had 176 doctors in my call deck. And what I did is I divided the doctors into the 4 quadrants, and I realized I was imparting information the wrong way. So I might go over to Dr. Joel and say, hey, Dr. Joel, I have a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trial published in the New England Journal of Medicine comparing Zocor 20 to Lipitor 10 and increases in HDL. And really, Dr. Joel wants to go golfing with me on Saturday, right? And so then I might go over to Dr. Amanda and say, hey, Dr. Amanda, I've got a tea time Saturday. She wants to hear about this study. Does this make sense? And so when I started realizing how I could give information, and I divided up my doctors into the 4 quadrants, I started giving them the information the way they understood it. So, because really, only 25% of the population perceives, processes information the same way you do. What that means is 75% of the world has no idea what you're talking about, right? So, I mean, you've been in those discussions, right? Heated discussions. Well, you said this, and they go, no, that's not what I said. I love that commercial, the Geico commercial, where the guy comes running, the daughter comes running in. Dad, I just got accepted to the best university in the state. Next scene, what he heard, Dad, I just got accepted to the most expensive university in the state, right? So we hear things differently. And because we hear and process information differently, sometimes it causes a reaction between the other people. Sometimes it's not a good one. So with these doctors, I was going around giving the right information. I won the Vice President's Award that year. So now picture this, there's 60,000 Merck Army, we used to call it, sales reps out in the field, and I was one of 12. And so they were highlighting my results at the Vice President's lunch, saying Fred did $33 million in sales, he did $15 million in Zocor sales, he moved market share 6%, and he goes, and so I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, I made $50,000 a year in salary that year, and a $22,000 bonus, and just when I was thinking that, he goes, what do you think of that, Fred? I go, I think I need a bigger bonus. That's what I think. He wasn't too excited about that response, by the way. But anyway, I set a goal, and you'll set one too on Saturday, that I wanted to get a job that paid me $75,000 plus bonus. And guess what? I got hired by a company called Millennium Biotech. What was my starting salary? A year later, I said, I want a job that pays me $120,000 a year plus bonus. I got a job with Medtronic selling pacemakers and implantable cardiac defibrillators. What was my starting salary? $125,000 plus bonus. What I realized is that I was setting the ceiling for what I was worth and not the floor. So I went out and raised all that money and bought that company. Nothing had changed. No new education, no new nothing. The only thing that changed was what? What I thought about me. I didn't even know that I was thinking that about me until I went through the course. Does that make sense? So the whole idea behind looking at your behavior is that maybe by doing things differently, you can have different results. And maybe it'll reduce some stress for you. Does that make sense? So all about that. So Friday night, the guys' night, emotions, right? We ever get Kleenex, cry if you want. What we really term perfect self-expression. Do you say the things that you mean? Do you mean the things that you say?